Good morning, all. Good morning, all. I wonder if you can see me. I wonder if you can hear me. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to wait for anybody to be able to find this. Let me see if I can just take
Good
this.
morning, all. Good morning.
There we go. Let's have a look. If you can find it, I'm going to go on X, uh, link to live stream. This is the beauty of it, isn't it? This is the beauty of it. Let's see if we've got it. Hopefully we have.
To go on X.
Good morning. Yes. Okay, this
link
one's now working. That's better. Can I see you? Yes. Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Let me get rid of this back chat that's going on. How wonderful. So this is my first YouTube live stream. There is no saying I knew there was going to be some tech issues to start with. Let me make sure that I get this recorded, first of all, record on this computer. Good, excellent. Right, where do we start? First of all, hello to everybody who's joining me here. Good morning to you all, Rock Lover and Car Wall and Just My Opinion and Lady Danbury UK and Annie and Armand and Nikki and Christine and Disturbingly Wicked and Anti-Vac and James Miller and Radical Cartoons and good morning to you, Scott, and that's life, but not as we know it. And Lady UK, wonderful to have you all here with me. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this is I'm a journalist and broadcaster, as most of you know, and I'm a transparent one. We've been let down so badly by mainstream media over the last, well, decade plus, but most people think that it's only the last 4 years after the C19 period. But no, that is not the reality. The reality is we've been let down by the media for an awful long time. And I thought the very least I could do is come on and be absolutely transparent with you about what has happened with me recently. And so, first of all, you're not going to get any general election chat here because we all know that it's absolute nonsense. It's literally handing over the chair from one globalist to another. They're all part of the same totalitarian regime, and we're not supporting it round here, not at all. So as I said, as many of you know, I'm a journalist and broadcaster of many decades experience. I've worked for most of mainstream media during that time, but about 10 years ago, I slowly began to realize that I couldn't actually do the right thing within the confines of mainstream media. And so I set about finding more alternative ways to get news and information out there. The problem about mainstream media, of course, is it's set up to benefit the few and not the many. In recent times, I was approached to work for a new news station called Today's News Talk, TNT. And I wanted to make this video because for the last 5 months, I've been employed by that media company as their breakfast show host. It's an Australian company. It's primarily owned by two friends, Mike Ryan and Jennifer Squires. Well, last Thursday, as many of you know, I resigned and I promised to explain why I had. Well, this is that explanation, as well as telling you what I'm planning to do next. And first of all, let's be clear here. And that is, I don't dislike Mike and Jenny. I was never sharply on the receiving end of them, but I saw what it was like for people who were. The fact is, I've been fighting my own battles with them since I started at TNT. And first of all, and not first of all, and next, please, no defamation in the comments. People are always looking to come after me. So I want to make it clear that I do not encourage defamation of anyone who has been against me. So please don't do it. And if you do, it's on you. And I want to start by saying, first of all, I'm really sorry to the viewers whom I said I would see the following day on the show last Thursday, and I never did. It clearly wasn't meant to be. And so this, as I say, is about my time at TNT and moving forward. I'd love to be able to use clips of my time at TNT, but the owners will absolutely use copyright as a way to shut down this video. So let's not even go there, right? So let's start from the beginning. When I was approached by Charlotte, aka the Baroness, she approached me to be the host. Some of you may know Charlotte. She's on social media. Brilliant woman, absolutely brilliant. Love her to bits. One of the best parts of my experience at TNT, to be frank. Let's have a glug of water if you don't mind. And Anyway, Charlotte approached me Christmas 2023, and she said that she was working for TNT now as a UK producer, and they were looking for a breakfast show host. And Charlotte knew that I had already run a successful independent breakfast show. So she immediately said, I know the person to do the job. And so she put me forward. And the next thing was I had a conversation with Jenny Squires, and we both between us made it clear that the breakfast show was going to be a variety show, just like Rise, which I'd already created. And I was actually really keen to work at Today's News Talk. And one of the reasons I was really keen is because it looks really professional, right? And I thought, here we have at last an alternative media outlet that is capable of competing with the mainstream, right? Oh, okay, fine. Sorry, things are happening on my screen. This is what happens when you're running it yourself, right? And let me just check everybody's still there. Everybody all still there? Yep, absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Right. So basically, I was very keen to get involved because TNT looked fantastically professional. And I thought at last we have an alternative media who can compete with the mainstream. So I had this conversation with Jenny. She was very clear. We're all about free speech. You know, we know you've got a good reputation as a journalist, a very thorough journalist. We'd love you to run our breakfast show, make it take off. And I thought, yeah, fantastic. Let us do this. This is exciting. And at the same time, brilliant Charlotte had also recommended Abby Roberts, the comedian. And Abby is brilliant, funny as anything. We had a brilliant time together at TNT. So basically, it was me on the 7 to 8 shift and Abby on the 8 to 9 shift. And together we formed the breakfast show. Anyway, it was absolutely brilliant. We were having a blast. And so we start the process rolling. Mike Ryan instructs me to get the equipment, and then they refunded me for getting all the equipment. Even though I already have my own recording equipment, they wanted very specific equipment, and that was absolutely fine, which incidentally, it's all packed up and ready to go. And that was absolutely fine because, you know, it was a uniformity and I get that. So no problem. So I went along with their equipment. And then the first thing that I knew there was a problem was in the week before I was due to start, Jenny sent out an email to all of us saying that basically they were getting rid of Katie Hopkins and they wanted me to take over her hour. And I said, absolutely not. That is not going to happen. Me and Katie Hopkins have had lots of issues in the past, and certainly like in mainstream media debates. But I am not going to take over Katie Hopkins' spot on TNT and be mauled by her followers. And it wasn't right anyway. I didn't want to set off at TNT taking over somebody else's spot like that, right? So that was not going to happen. Absolutely not. So I refused. So straight away, I was already opposing some of their ideas, even before I'd done my first show. Anyway, the first week kicked off, Charlotte and I together, and it's a very small team. I've worked in mainstream media for a very, very long time. A show like The Breakfast Show would have taken 10, 15, even 20 members of staff. But it was me and Charlotte and basically audio and visual over in Australia. And that was it. But we did it, and we had a great time. We were putting together guests. We were very, very excited. And the first week was when I realized something was very, very wrong in terms of this promised free speech. Now, let me be very, very clear here about free speech. And that is, you cannot have free speech without consequences. I get it. As someone who has been sued over defamation, I think that I am better placed than most anybody at TNT to understand about defamation. So I'm extremely careful, which is why I started off this broadcast saying, please don't defame anybody, right? So anyway, the first week kicked off, we had our guests. And on the last day, I had this guest called Dan Stevens. Now, I know Dan because he was a whistleblower for the government, not for the government. He testified in a government committee to do with the doping scandal. So I brought in Dan, and Dan has been observing what has been going on in our skies in terms of geoengineering. Brought Dan on, we talked about it. And the next thing I know, at that weekend, I received an email saying no more geoengineering. So I was like, what? And there was a whole list of stuff that I wasn't supposed to do anymore, such as not have spiritual or philosophical conversations with my with Gemma Cooper, who was a journalist who came on my show. Well, initially for just when I was at the 1 hour once, and then she came on twice throughout the 2 hours. And in that first week, we were talking about things like rise up. Well, Mike didn't want me to use that language, right? None of that language. So I was like, where have I entered into exactly? That I can't actually use language like rise up when we're on the boot of oppression that we have been for so long, especially because TNT prides itself on free speech. So I was like, okay, none of that makes any sense. So I tried to work around it, and I said to them, are you saying to me that geoengineering talk is banned on TNT? And Mike was like, that's strong language. But basically, he was saying, it's a ridiculous topic, this whole idea that government are doing this to us, and it just makes us look like idiots, basically. And I was like, what? I've been investigating this subject for over a decade, and there's so much truth to it that there's even details on the government website. They put out tenders on the government website. And I just thought, this is really, really shocking. And so I was starting to get a picture here. So no philosophical musings or spiritual musings, no geoengineering. Oh, and by the way, right at the start, they had also made clear not too much about child abuse, because they had associated my name with my work to do with child abuse, such as documentaries I'd made. And they didn't want too much child abuse. And I was like, wait, what do you mean not too much? Because I'd already said I'm doing a variety show. But obviously, you need to cover those issues, and especially somebody like me who was known for speaking out about that. Anyway, the other thing that I was told was that I was interacting with the audience too much. Now, my show description was very clear. It was about me being interacting with the audience. I can see you right there. Grand risings to you all. Wonderful. Yeah, don't mention Maddie. Thank you, Angie. Love to see you. And you too, Sol San and John Smith Crone, all of you. Wonderful to see you in the chat. Loving it very, very much. And ASC Wellbeing Clinic says, just look up. Indeed, just look up, which is what we did. But let me get onto that. So basically, I was then instructed, literally within weeks, Mike was telling me that I could only interact with the live stream chat 3 times per shift, right? When I saw that email, I told him that they had to change my show description, because audience participation was a central theme of my show, right? A central theme. I love interacting with the audience. It's not just the audience, it's actually like a part of the show, a major part of the show. So anyway, I just thought, this is getting a bit ridiculous. I don't understand what's going on here. Where's the free speech, and why are they clamping down on me? But anyway, I carried on chatting to the audience when I wanted to anyway, and he never said anything about it again. But he began to fill up the show so that there were so few gaps left for me to interact with the viewers. So he found another way around. Okay, really weird. And then around about, I think it was about the second week in March, could have that date wrong, but it was around March, the owners contacted me. They told me that they were trying to get new investment, and would I increase my show to 2 hours a day for no extra money to help while they secured funding, right? And I thought, well, it wasn't just 2 hours. I was doing 2 hours screen time, but I was doing multiple hours behind the scenes prepping for the shows. Anyway, I said yes. I wanted today's news talk, TNT, to succeed. So I literally doubled up my hours and essentially took a pay cut for that station to succeed. So I was not somebody who wanted to destroy the station from within. I wanted it to succeed. And I hope that the longer I stayed in the breakfast show spot, I could influence them about these mad ideas that they were coming out with. And so then we had all this nuttiness, right? So I started to bring in really brilliant people to talk about really important topics. And one of them was Maggie Oliver. I'm sure many of you know Maggie Oliver out there. Let me just wipe my nose a second. I'm so excited to be here. This is, like I said, literally my first YouTube live stream. Lovely to be here with you. Anyway, so I brought in Maggie Oliver, absolutely brilliant Maggie. I've interviewed her before. She was talking about grooming gangs. And I also brought in Andrew Loney. Andrew Loney is an author. He's an agent, but he's also the man who's been exposing Mountbatten and the Royals, a very credible historian. And I got in trouble for both of those. Mike said that there were other topics to cover. And I was like, Maggie Oliver is talking about a report that is only just out now after years of her saying about these grooming gangs. But today's News Talk have an issue with their breakfast show presenter covering this, when it was brilliant that we could get Maggie on in the first place. And they also had a problem with me bringing on Andrew Loney to talk about the royal family and Epstein. It just wasn't making sense. It wasn't making any sense at all, right? And so the thing is, the stuff really started to hit the fan recently when the UK skies and everywhere else was bombarded over one particular weekend. And I knew that I could not ignore what I was seeing. And I knew that I could not ignore it to the viewers. I owe so much to the viewers. If you speak on behalf of the public, as I do, then I believe that I owe you absolutely everything to tell you things that are in the public interest. Once I've done thorough due diligence, not just somebody whacking, a subject at me and saying, cover this or what about this? Once I've done thorough due diligence, I cannot unsee what I've seen. You know that. I'm sure many people watching this are exactly like that, right? You can't unsee it. So basically, I ended up having to send an email on the Sunday before my show saying Sky's been bombarded all over the UK. I cannot ignore it because otherwise it's going to start to look really weird, right? The absence of us saying anything about geoengineering is going to start to look really, really weird, right? And so basically what happened was Mike came back and very begrudgingly, they agreed that I could say something, but they said that if I want to do an interview about it, it had to be a pre-record with somebody that they selected. I was like, this is getting even stranger, right? Even stranger. So I did the editorial on the Monday and the thing went viral, like literally went viral. I clipped it, put it out on social media. It went viral. Hundreds of thousands of views all over the world. And the response from all over the world was extraordinary. People writing to me from Italy, France, Germany, South Africa, America, China, all over, telling me their skies were the same and had not been, and they knew it wasn't natural. So I said, this is amazing. Our TNT breakfast show editorial has started all this, got people talking, and people were thinking already that TNT was mainstream. They were like, at last, mainstream are talking about geoengineering. So I was like, this is fantastic. We have to follow this up on the show the following day on the Tuesday, and we have to acknowledge all the people from around the world who have taken the time to write into me, not just write into me, but send me pictures as well, right? They were sending me pictures as well of their skies, which were just the same as the UK. So we know it's all over, right? Lockstep, all over. I got banned, literally banned and censored from talking about the response, right? So by this point, they brought in a new executive producer to oversee my show, right? Steve, he worked for talk radio. He's a very much mainstream person, and I think he'd also done some producing for like Stacey Solomon. So obviously nothing at all like me, but we were intent on educating him, right, about what was really going on, because Steve's mind is all in what's important for Keir Starmer, right? As you will be able to tell over the last 2-3 weeks of my time at TNT, if you look back, you'll see the garbage that they were getting me to talk about, and I was doing the best I could to give pushback up against it, but some of it was impossible. But anyway, so Steve had said to me, we had this running order, which unbeknown to me, Mike was seeing, and Steve said to me, yeah, you can't do those responses to that geoengineering. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's literally all over the world. Everybody's talking about it. This is a matter of public interest. What do you mean I can't read out about the responses? No, Mike's vetoed it. You can't do it. So I said to him there and then, listen, Steve, let me be clear to you. And that is TNT brought me on board because I'm not a puppet journalist and you're expecting me to behave like a puppet journalist. Anyway, this was like 10 minutes before we're due to go on air. So I have to park it and I am seething. I'm absolutely seething that I've been vetoed from talking about something so important. Anyway, the censorship just continued. May the 1st. I was due to speak to a campaigner, Emma Jane Taylor. She runs a campaign called Not My Shame, and it was Not My Shame Day. And I had Emma Jane booked for, well, since January to come on the show. And on the day before May the 1st, Steve tells me that she can't come on. I'm like, what? And it's not personal to her. They just don't want me talking about child abuse. Like, I'm actually fairly well known for uncovering child abuse, and we weren't putting it on regularly. And I said to them, you know me, it's not going to be graphic, it's breakfast time, but I'm going to make people aware of what is happening. And but no, that was vetoed, and we ended up going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards on this day. And I got so fed up because actually the following day I was in court and they were starting to take up time that I needed to prepare for court. So I said to Steve, that is it, forget it, I'm not doing tomorrow's show, right? If she can't come on, I'm not coming on. Simple as that. And I said, I'm not doing tomorrow's show. And that was it. I didn't do it. And I didn't do the day after either. I went to court, and the day after I took some time to think about what I wanted to do. And then Mike sent me this crappy email about, what was I doing and blah, blah, blah. And how rude was I? How rude am I? What are you talking about? You brought me in, told me it was a free speech station, and then set out to censor me, right? Which is really, really weird, right? Basically, TNT has now turned into a bad GB News. It's sort of a cross between Good Morning Britain and GB News, the breakfast show. Our wonderful breakfast show that we had such an amazing vision for has become a poor version of everything that is wrong in mainstream media. The fact is, I now realize that they had no plans whatsoever to let me do the show that I intended to do. And I didn't come in there with no experience, not at all. I have spent decades on breakfast TV and mainstream media working out what they did right and what they did wrong and how we could utilize that, right? And so basically, I came in with a ton of ideas about how we could create a breakfast show that people actually want. People don't want another version of GB News or Talk Radio. They don't. People are absolutely sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. They want to hear the real stuff, not about Keir Starmer's 6 pledges, for goodness sake. Anyway, the weeks were kind of going on and I was just getting completely fed up of it. But this was what was interesting. After 3 decades in media, I was the most experienced journalist on TNT, right? I think the next one after me is Gemma, who had spent 20 years at the BBC. But I had been in mainstream media for 3 decades, the most experienced journalist, as I say, on TNT. And yet it turns out now that I was probably the only one they were seeking to censor, because we've now seen other TNT hosts come out like Rick, like James, saying they never told me what to say. They never sought to censor me. Yeah. Why did they bring in someone highly experienced like myself and seek to control me in such a way? Right. People were saying to me, wait a second, are they controlled? Are they controlled opposition? They might be, they might not be. All I know is the way they behaved was towards me was literally like controlled opposition. So it didn't make any sense. They brought me in to create my own breakfast show, but they tied my hands from the beginning. And it was weird because the show was doing really well, right? The producer told me that when they were booking guests for other shows, it was easier to get guests on if they said Sonia Poulton does our breakfast show. We also had the highest live views on our show on YouTube and Rumble. And sometimes TNT's YouTube's views are really like embarrassingly low. I don't understand why they can't get viewers. And that's all across shows. They just can't, right? So I resigned. Last Thursday. So basically, it was absolute chaos last Thursday, and it was just getting worse. And the topics that I was being asked to debate, and they brought on this man to talk about, the second time that we go to the moon. And I was like, you what now? Like, we need to start, we need to be much better in our pushback. And I'd been much, they brought on people like Lois Perry the day before, who had become the new UKIP leader. And so I interviewed her. The very first interview she did as leader was with me, and I gave her proper pushback. And actually, people preferred it. They preferred proper pushback than some of the awful PR interviews that they do on TNT. Some of the interviewers on TNT, and don't get me wrong, some of them I really like, but some of them are absolutely abysmal. They are nothing more than like puppets and like PRs. That's exactly what they are. And it's absolutely ridiculous, because this has the potential to be the new alternative. But was it Lenin who said, if you want to control the opposition, you lead it? I think it was, right? So anyway, so here's the thing. Let me tell you some more, right, about what happened. So last Thursday, finally had enough. I was like, this is just ridiculous. I don't want to do this anymore. And I sent them a resignation letter. I can read you parts of it because I've got it in front of me. Let me just find it. And I just said clearly, hello, Mike and Jenny, this is my resignation with immediate effect. It wasn't the numerous embarrassments that I had to endure live on air today, but they were the icing on the cake. And that included, for example, a hot mic situation. I don't know if you know what a hot mic situation is. It's where you get caught on mic saying something. So they'd gone to a break. It was just so embarrassing. They weren't bringing the guests through, and I was announcing guests that didn't turn up. All of that happens on live shows, and I never had an issue with that because there's loads of errors all the way. But I suppose I just had enough by Thursday. So they caught me on hot mic saying, this is ridiculous, like get yourselves together and all this kind of stuff. And then I could see in the comments at the end of the show, they were saying you were caught on hot mic, and I didn't know exactly what I'd been caught saying, but I made this comment at the end of the show, which is on my X, where I basically say, I heard I was caught on hot mic, and the chances are I meant every single word of it, and I did. I meant every single word of it. So basically, let me continue with this letter. I said, the fact is, I came to TNT to create a breakfast show, one that I know is missing in the UK. And having spent decades in MSM breakfast shows, I know what is missing from the breakfast schedule. Sadly, I was not able to do that at TNT as my hands were tied from the beginning. The breakfast show is an embarrassment to me now. It's a poor man's version of Good Morning Britain, GB News and Talk Radio, and those are all dying shows. People are tired of TV shows based on manufactured news headlines, and that is not something for me, as you know. So I will decline your offer to move to afternoon. So this is the next bit, right? So basically, after I announced my resignation on Twitter, X, they then put out a tweet saying, we don't know what she's talking about. We offered her a better show with zero censorship. Well, first of all, isn't TNT supposed to be zero censorship? So what was that about? No, what they'd offered me was the dead spot in the afternoon. They wanted to get me off of breakfast because, in Mike's words, he rang me and he said, we keep bumping heads. We keep bumping heads, Mike, because I'm an experienced journalist and you want to turn the breakfast show into a piece of slop. That's why we're bumping heads, Mike, because you don't want me to talk about geoengineering or child abuse or gender. He said, minimize talk of gender. Look at the whole issue of transgenderism, wanted me to minimize it, make it smaller. That's what I was dealing with, right? So that's what madness I was dealing with, right? And so basically what they'd offered me was, if I wanted free speech, which TNT is supposed to be free speech, if I wanted free speech, I could move to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And they actually told me, we don't have many viewers there, but we're hoping that you can generate more viewers in that afternoon. And I didn't want to do the afternoons. Initially, I said, yeah, because I didn't want to leave TNT. I was like thinking of the greater good. And I had friends saying, I know there's real problems here with this, with this station, but try and stick it out as best you can. And I did. I worked with them. Anybody who was witness to it knows I worked with TNT to try and stay there. But I could not stay there in the long term, knowing there was an issue with coverage of geoengineering or child abuse or gender, or even being able to say rise up. But what was interesting was they were allowing their other hosts to talk about geoengineering, and not just allowing them, but retweeting them. The main TNT account was retweeting them. So again, me, the most experienced journalist at TNT, was the only one they were attempting to control and censor. Why? Right? Why? So basically what happened was I declined their offer to move to 2 p.m. because I don't want to do an afternoon show. I want to do a breakfast show because I know about how breakfast works. And I also know how important it is in terms of people's viewing, right? Let me just bring that back. So I just put away that letter. So then I just put, so I will decline your offer to move to afternoon, and I will continue to pursue my plans of a breakfast show that there is a gap in the market for. Right? I shall file my last invoice and pack up my equipment. It's a pity it didn't work. The potential was huge, but we simply have different visions. Best wishes, Sonia. So that is what I sent them. There were so many dumb rules that I couldn't even get my head around. So basically last year, they moved from just audio to audio and visual. Great move. Brilliant idea. People love actually, being able to see who's talking, for the most part. Great idea. Except Mike had so many dumb rules about this. It was unbelievable, right? And the thing is, when you have a visual, it increases the audience size, and surely that is the aim, okay? So Mike was doing things like, if any of our guests were speaking to us on an iPad or an iPhone or outside, they'd have to go to the phone symbol. And I just thought this was so ridiculous, because what about atmosphere? A perfect example is, he said, I've got an idea for your show, and that that is to bring in a London cabbie to talk about what matters to the people who get into his cab. I said, great, love it, right? Appeal to the man and woman, on the street, brilliant, we love it. So did that. Guess what? Wouldn't allow him to talk from his cab. Said, no, 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 he's got to talk from his Zoom at home. Like, where is the atmosphere there? When I run a breakfast show, which isn't too far off, I will be talking to people in their cars. And another one, the one of the people who was campaigning for Mayor of London, oh, what was his name? He came on my show, Andreas. Forgive me, I think it's Andreas. Forgive me, Andreas. He came on my show, but he also went on, I can't remember who else's show, but he had a campaign bus, brilliant, really atmospheric, really visual. TNT would not allow it to be shown him talking inside his campaign bus. That's absolutely ridiculous. Major news channels would have shown that. And it was just really embarrassing and stupid, some of the dumb rules, right? And because the poor people on the desk were no strangers to receiving a call from the bosses berating them for the image that was on the screen. A lot of people were walking around on tiptoes. And it was really, really difficult, to be honest with you. It was a toxic environment. And there was a period of time, of course, when lots of people were leaving. Abby Roberts left, and I interviewed her at Kegworth, a Kegworth weekender. And I asked her in an interview why she left, and she basically said because the owners were the C word. And and that was reality for many people. They found it extremely toxic environment. I know that other people have left through censorship reasons, so they cannot champion themselves as a free speech station, because that is a big fat lie. It's a big fat lie. My aim is not to bring down TNT, by the way. It's to tell the truth of my experience. I wish more journalists and broadcasters, when they've been through an experience in broadcasting, that they spoke out about it. But most people don't. And you know why they don't? Because they're scared of not getting another job. That has never bothered me. The universe always seems to provide somehow, right? And she is not what I am not working for the Fabian Society. Don't be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I've exposed the Fabian Society. Can you not just use Rise? Well, no, Rise was somebody else's suggestion. It was Mohammed at BNT. No, we've got a new name. Absolutely got a new name. And who's deleting your comments? Not me. Look, it's just me. I'm just running this, right? Yeah, Marie. Abby was absolutely great. She was hilarious. But they moved her to the drive time show so they could give me 2 hours. And then she left. She'd had enough. And actually, on the day that she left, we didn't know that she was going to leave, but it was me and her, and we were talking, and she said, I think I'm going to go. And I said to her, look, Abby, you have to remember, I'm an investigative journalist. So even if I stick around, I'm going to be watching and observing everything. And eventually I will probably compile a report, right? So, because I'm an investigative journalist, and that's what I do. You can compile reports about things that I witness firsthand. Simple as that. Anyway, as I say, for me, I absolutely need to be at breakfast. It's absolutely vital. That's where I know that change can be affected. It sets people up for the day. And at the moment, all channels are saying exactly the same thing, including today's News Talk. And as I say, it's a pity because of the great potential there. Everything is there, right? It looks and sounds great, mostly, except obviously the recent numerous production issues, which have made the platform look really amateurish. But viewers generally forgive blips. They forgive issues like that. But when it's a fairly constant problem, such as poor streaming or production failings to go to queues or leaving microphones on so the presenter is caught and heard off camera, viewers become a bit tired of that sort of stuff. And, as I say, all that happened to me on the last day. The show was literally falling apart. Like, if there was a sign from the universe that it was time for me to get the hell out of Dodge, it was then, right? It was absolutely then. Are you still receiving me? My camera's just gone a bit funny and twitchy, but I think it's okay. And that last day told me everything, right? It's a poor show. It was ridiculous. And, as I say, I saw the executive producer leave a message saying, hot mic. hot mic on at that point. As I say, I didn't completely know what I said, but I had been caught saying this is ridiculous, and I absolutely meant it. I meant every word of it. The truth is, I do not want to be part of the same old, same old. While I still care enough, while I still have a beating heart and blood pumping around my body, I still want to create a real media difference. I absolutely do. And that ultimately is why I had to leave TNT, today's news talk, because it is not capable of being something new and different, right? It's not capable. You can't make a media difference by repeating the same old formula, right? People want more, people demand more, people become more discerning now. People now know that we are living in parallel worlds. There's the world that they sell you in mainstream media, right? About, all the stuff. Got to be careful, obviously, because I'm live streaming on YouTube, and I want to be extremely careful what I say, because I don't need another strike. I had a strike recently simply for running a commentary video about Andrew Bridgen's debate in Parliament, and I got my first YouTube strike based on that. Right, so I've got to be really, really careful. Thank you all for joining me here, by the way. Absolutely loving it, really loving it. What's this? Yes, Sarah says, would love to have a good morning show to watch. Definitely miss having my morning coffee with something to watch. Sarah, well, this is where it gets to the good stuff, right? This is where it gets to the good stuff. So, but the bottom line is this: TNT is not making money. Previous business deals have gone awry, and they need new investors. And so they're trying lots of different formats at the moment. And they're trying one at the moment with a bunch of talk radio, talk TV, and GB News people, right? So that is what TNT is becoming. People who say things like, yeah, we have a climate crisis, and all that sort of stuff that they love to talk about. And they don't talk about all the things that we know that has taken place over the last 4 years. Those are the new contributors to TNT. That's what's going on, right? Did you really, Michael? You lost your channel of over 500 videos because you posted truth. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Thank you, Jones. I look forward to listening to your new projects. Sonia, I'll give some respect, as they were groundbreaking at a time when a platform was needed. I hear that, Jones. Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons why I was prepared to join them, because I was like, this has all the basis to take off. But what my experience was that they wanted to curb and control their most experienced journalist. And that is really bizarre behavior, right? So anyway, which brings me to the new stuff, the news show. Yes, we are doing a new breakfast show. It is called Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. Yes, absolutely. Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. It's already in advanced stages of planning. We are talking to investors at this moment in time. We're in talks about funding, and the aim is for me and a small team to run a breakfast show the way we know it should be run. Simple as that. Honestly, like when you tell the truth, really simple. Don't need to dress it up. And what they've turned my breakfast show into at TNT is basically, so this is how they now do the breakfast show. They now compile the breakfast show. They get all the mainstream media headlines, the big ones that are happening, and they pick guests based on mainstream media headlines. Literally that. That is literally no different to This Morning, Good Morning Britain, GB News, and all of them, right? Nobody's interested in that. I am on Rumble, Ozone. This will be uploaded to Rumble later, right? And did you like that, Crone? Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. Thank you. Wonderful. And guests, of course, because that's the whole point. We have to have guests. We absolutely have to have guests involved in what we're doing. And so, yeah, I wanted to just be really straightforward, really honest with you about what's happened. And let me just be clear here. If anybody wants to contest what I'm saying at TNT, I'm an investigative journalist. And as I said on Twitter, I have more receipts than Tesco. I have kept evidence of everything that has taken place. But if any of the TNT bosses would like a right to reply, absolutely. I would be more than happy to give you a right to reply. Let me interview you about your policies and why you brought me in only to want to silence me. Why was that? Because I'm still confused about it. It doesn't make any sense. Yes, Beverly, absolutely. Wake up with Sonia Poulton and guests. Absolutely. And the other thing that I'm very, very clear about is that guests need to be paid. Oh, yes, they do. Like, I'm not talking about politicians who come on, who people who've got something to flog, if like they want to come on and talk about their book, shouldn't be paid. But if a journalist, a researcher, or somebody who's put time and energy into researching something appears on a show, they should be paid for it. And they will be on my show. Absolutely. 100%. No doubt about it, right? That is absolutely going to happen. And just a shout out to some of my brilliant guests who had a bit of a hard time when they were trying to appear with me. One of them is ex-MEP Godfrey Bloom. Lovely Godfrey is one of the people that MSM told me to hate. And so it took me a while to get to know him a bit better. And it turned out that I can still disagree with him about some things and still like him. Isn't that amazing? But lovely Godfrey was somebody that I wanted on my show very much. And they put him through all manner of hell. They did not like us talking to him because he was talking on his iPad, even though he had talked successfully with numerous other people in recordings, including me, away from TNT. They just didn't like him on his iPad, so they put him to a phone symbol. Same thing happened to former MP Chris Williamson, and it just went on, and it was just looking really like ridiculous. Like, what is the ego driving this, that we can't see these people talking just because they're on an iPad? Right? It was so silly. It was like anti-journalism, frankly. It was completely anti-journalism. And so, yes, onwards and upwards. And we have to move forward. We just have to. And let's have a look at the comments now. Peter, me and Godfrey are both truthers, absolutely. And he will absolutely be on my new show. As I say, I don't have to agree with everybody about everything to interview them. Oh, that was the other thing. Oh, you'll love this. Right at the beginning, my first introduction to TNT, my editorial, was where I set out that I would interview people that I didn't necessarily like. It wasn't going to be a PR jobby. It was just going to be people who had something to say, and I would interview them. And I had a conversation with a member of staff about this, and I said, the thing is I think what's really missing here is people being challenged, and it all comes over a bit like PR and everything. And this member of staff, he said to me, I completely agree with you. Some of our guests need challenging better. Anyway, what unbeknown to me, he also took that back to Mike Ryan, who then sent me an email saying, if you're going to bring on people to challenge them, you have to let me know about it first. Like, what? Like what? Guess what? Never let him know. We did not let him know. I did not let him know. No, I didn't. We brought on people that I was fairly sure that I would have some serious questions to ask, and I didn't bother giving him the heads up because no, the levels of censorship, the tentacles of censorship were all surrounding me. So all of it had to end, all had to stop. It really did. And that is my story, literally my story. All of it is verifiable. I as I say, I was there, I went there because I believed that it could make a difference. And it couldn't, it was impossible. Thank you so much, by the way, for these like super chats. I'm not even used to these. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Really appreciate that. They wrote that, says Dan. Yeah, they wrote that if I was going to bring on people that I wanted to challenge, I had to give them the heads up first. I'm a journalist, for God's sake. Get a grip. Max, it is possible. Anything's possible. At the stated radio station, too honest and too experienced Lionsgate. That is the reality. We will not be censored, Sasha. No, we will not. And the thing about me, you're right, Girls Channel. I speak from the heart. Sometimes I wear my heart on my sleeve too much, gets me in trouble, but it is who I am. There are no sides to me. There are no hidden sides to me. I am transparent. I work on the basis that if you ask me an honest question, you will receive an honest answer. And what's hilarious, Matthew, about being told to give them the heads up if I was going to challenge any of the guests? Hilarious. Absolutely. Yeah, Gary, I had to go. And yeah. And thank you. Marie said she loved the UKIP interview. Oh, was I like a Rotty? Really? But the thing is, here's why. Because somebody like a Lois Perry should not be allowed to run around giving fulsome support to Israel without being asked very serious questions about that, right? And I did. I asked that, but we also conducted it in a professional way. And once I dealt with her on that topic, I then moved on to other things such as net zero and other things that UKIP standing for. So I can have a very serious conversation with somebody, a very serious interview with them, and still keep it professional. But honestly, people are absolutely sick and tired of mainstream media interviews where they're all on the same side and they all party together at the Spectator annual summer party. I'm not like that. I've never been part of that crew. I'm pretty much a lone wolf. I sort of move alone. I'm not in hardly any WhatsApp groups other than to do with my work, like directly to do with my work, people I work with. I'm not in any of those other kind of WhatsApp groups where they all become really, really chummy and then afraid to call each other out. I'm not in any of that. Absolutely not. You know, so no, not having it. You asked the hard question, Sonia. Serious journalism. Disintegral says she was relentlessly awful. She was. But the thing I didn't respect her for, right, was being prepared to face me in the first place, because lots of MPs won't do that. And I appreciate that synchronized. Where you go, we go. I really appreciate that. This has been such an incredible week for me since I announced my resignation. An incredible week. I've had so many approaches and wonderful offers from people. I actually feel quite emotional. You just heard it in my throat there, didn't you? I actually feel quite emotional because, you know, it's like it really has restored my faith in what I do. Not that I ever lost it, to be honest with you. I've been doing this for an awful long time. I have accumulated an awful lot of enemies, and I don't give a flying. I'm not about one of them. Absolutely not, because I do what I do. And I always think, you know, I'm just going to share a little story with you, which you may or may not know, but some people wonder why I am prepared to do the things I do, to basically stand up and be counted. Thank you, Pink Diamond. I appreciate that. To basically stand up and be counted. And I always say one of the things about me is that I don't feel that much fear, right? Now, I always put that down to the fact that when I was about, I don't know, 18 months old, I fell off a table and it was quite a serious fall. And I'm absolutely convinced that I snapped some kind of neuron which was linked to like the fear factor. So I walk into situations where angels fear to tread, as they say. And even though I'm not a psychopath, so I'm not like, none of this is going to hurt me, not at all. There are moments when I'm a bit like, oh, this is a bit on the edge. But for the most part, I'm like, well, sod it, I'm doing it anyway. I'm going right through. And that is what's going to happen. And Mick, I did say, if you ask me a decent question, a true question, I'll give you a decent answer. Mick Ackroyd is asking what happened at BNT. Here's what happened at BNT. I worked with Mohammed Butt. Lovely man. Really, I'm very, very fond of Mohammed. And so first of all, we had Raw on a Friday night at BNT. It was brand new Tube, which is a video streaming platform, for those who aren't familiar with it. We had the Raw report, which was great. And then I said to Mohammed, look, Mohammed, what I really know about is breakfast shows. I know how to make a successful breakfast show. Let me do it. So he said, all right, let's do that. So we launched Rise. And actually, my daughter reminded me the other day that I originally was going to call it Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. And now look where we are now, right? Funny, right? Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Love to Sweden. Love Sweden. Varsågod, I think. Hej då. Hej då. I remember a little bit of Swedish from my time in Sweden. Only a little bit, though. Only a tiny, tiny bit. I am a lone wolf, Native America. Am I not allowed to say those things anymore? Right. Right, so where was I? Oh, BNT. Mick had asked me a question, and so basically we did Rise, and then we brought in Sean Ward, brilliant Sean Ward, who was the former bad boy at Coronation Street, and he was my co-host. And Sean and I got on like a house on bloody fire. We had the most fun. We loved it, right? Yeah, Hatchie, I believe that. A hug from me too. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so loved Sean, loved working with him. And so we did Rise. And then on a Sunday night at the end of, I think it was the end of October, not a Sunday night, Sunday morning, I received a WhatsApp from Mohammed saying to tell people the following morning on Rise that it would be the last Rise for now. Let me just take a glug of water. Talking very quickly. I hope I'm not talking too fast for you. So, yeah, it does. Healing the silence. The universe has a very interesting way in bringing around past visions. I completely agree with you. Honestly, at the moment, I feel like I'm in a very interesting karmic cycle. It's full moon as well today, by the way, which is also one of the reasons that I decided that today was the day to tell all this. Anyway, so Mohammed sent this WhatsApp saying, let people know that tomorrow is the last Rise for now. So I said, wait, you're sacking us. And he said, no, I'm not. We're just going to put it on pause for a while. So bear in mind that Mohammed had been absolutely brilliant. Mohammed had supported me through legal issues. We'd become really, really good friends over 3 years. And I know that he was dealing with a lot of awful situations as a consequence of working with me, because some people went after him, but he stood by me and he was absolutely brilliant. And I stood by him. And even when Brand New Tube went through terrible situations like being hacked, which is not unusual, it happens to the best of us and to many people. But even when Brand New Tube was hacked, I was the face that was getting blamed. Like, why has this happened? Why has our information been leaked? I had nothing to do with it. I was literally just presenting the breakfast show, but I took it. I took it because Mohammed had been really good to me and I was good to him. I love loyalty. Loyalty is really important to me. So basically, from that day, from Mohammed saying that it was going on a brief pause, he's not talked to me ever again since. And so that is what's happened. But I do know that yesterday they made an announcement that all of the people, not all of the people, just the people who had been harassing them and reporting them to Ofcom, and the platform had been under Ofcom investigation. Ofcom had closed it, finding nothing. And so well done to them. I'm still very fond of them. I do not have any bad words to say about them, but it was just really, really weird. Really weird. Like, we went from working together for 3 years to him saying, well, basically, not talk to me at all, not explaining why you cancelled our show, nothing. So what I did in that in between time between Rise and TNT was I made lots of YouTube videos, right? I launched, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Richard. You got a problem with a full moon. Full moons are lovely. That's where things come to the surface, mate. Get a grip. And Mick, I loved the BNT show. I absolutely loved Rise. It was my heart and soul. I put everything into it. We were originally 2 days, then we went down to one, but I spent pretty much the whole week like pulling stuff together and pulling together guests. I loved it. I was really disappointed that he let it go, and we were getting absolutely great views, absolutely fantastic views on Rise, and it had everything to play for. We were being approached by people who wanted to sponsor it and all these different things. And but Miami wasn't interested, and which is why I have to do my own thing with people like me who've got the same vision as me. So I hope that's answered your question about what's happened to Rise, because people ask me. And thank you, Julie. We appreciate that. I love working with Sean. Absolutely brilliant. I want to work with him again in the future. Absolutely. And is there anything else that you have your tribe, Sonia? Thank you, Simon. Rise was great. Never heard of BNT, said Mark. Christian says, were you pro-Palestine? Now, that's an interesting question. I always feel that's a bit of a trap. No, I'm anti-genocide. Does that help you? Right. It was a great relationship and it was a pity. I've still got my Rise BNT mug lady as well. Goodness me, there's some, oh, that sounds horrible. How strange. Good on you for rising again. Thank you, Beverly. I totally appreciate that. So that's where we are. I'm going to shortly finish this live stream. We've nearly gone an hour. And thank you so much for these chat. I'm literally getting new to it. So when I'm seeing this money go up at the side of the screen, I'm like, what is that for? So presumably this is wonderful. These are donations and I really appreciate it. Your fans taking on the medical industry now. I have long taken on the medical industry. Here's the thing about me, right? Absolutely, the thing about me is that once I have done my due diligence on a story, and if I believe there is truth to it, that it is an injustice in some way or corruption, I will go for it wholeheartedly, 100%. You cannot hold me back, right? That is the reality. I'm loving this. How many have we got with us today? Absolutely wonderful. Oops. Yeah, wonderful. Wow, for the first stream. Awesome. Yes, Shug, that is absolutely awesome. Rock Lover, absolutely going to cover the Lucy Letby case. Yeah, I agree with you. I actually had been put in touch with a doctor who was prepared to, he's been writing online anonymously. So he'd been writing online anonymously about the problems with the Lucy Letby conviction. And I was put in touch with him and he said, look, I'm prepared to come on your show, waive my anonymity and talk about it. And I was like, this is fantastic. This is a great idea. And he said, contact me after Easter. So I contacted him after Easter and I contacted him again and I contacted him again and he's ignoring me. So obviously that's it. And thank you. Oh, June, thank you. Really appreciate that. But hey, anytime. No retreat. Short order cook says no retreat, no surrender. 100%. You're absolutely welcome, Shalini. I felt an obligation to be straightforward and upfront with you all about what happened. And Tanya, lovely Tanya, I love you too, sweetie. Tanya has followed me from platform to platform to platform. She's adorable. Whenever I disappear, she sends me emails saying, "Where have you gone?" Absolutely lovely. This means the world to me, right? Yes, Mark, this is literally my first stream on YouTube, right? And really, it's absolutely insane. And in fact, it wasn't lining up properly to begin with. So I hope that it all like records properly. So anyway, I just want to say, how do you get information to me? You get information to me by writing to me at Sonia Poulton at sky.com. And let me be clear here, right? I don't work for Sky. That is an old Sky email from when we had Sky long time ago. And the reason that I still keep it is because many contacts have that. So if you want to get to me, you want to send a story to me, contact me at soniapoulton@sky.com. I am working on a very important investigation at the moment. I haven't had time to dedicate solely to it, but I will do. And it is an important story to do with the true origins of what happened around C19. And yeah, so I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this live chat. I do, healing the silence. You literally feel like you're on top of it. I do, because you know, the thing about truth is very freeing. It just frees your soul, mate. It just does. And what platform can I watch the UKIP interview on? Well, this is the other thing, is TNT have deleted all my interviews. This is such petty nonsense. It's like, if you are truly a platform for truth, even if you can't stand her, leave up her interviews, because she's interviewed some really interesting people, but they didn't. They deleted the whole thing because it's petty and it's silly. And there you go. And how do we get the important stories to the general public? Well, it depends what you call an important story. I try and cover as much as humanly possible. There are some stories that people show up and say, "This is such an important story, you must cover it." And it sometimes it's not always. Everybody believes that they have the keys to the most important story. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. I certainly will have a drink on you. Mine's a cold lager, by the way, and with a little bit of lime in it. They're deleting interviews. Wipes history. It does. It's absolutely ridiculous. When is the next wake up with Sonia Poulton? Well, everything is changing so fast right now. First of all, I just want to say, really, I want to be very clear here, and that is my experience at TNT was not entirely bad. I got to work with the most wonderful producer that I've ever worked with. Her name is Charlotte Binns. She is known as the Baroness, and she was absolutely brilliant. And were it not for her, I would not have kept going there as long as I did. And she was absolutely brilliant. She's a fantastic producer, and they should cherish her deeply. And yes, TNT just had Edwina Curry on my breakfast show. Can you believe that? And that's because, well, first of all, Lembit likes her. Lembit likes Edwina Curry. Can you imagine? Like, there are literally videos online of me fighting with Edwina Curry about what she knew when she was in Parliament, what she put in her book. I wouldn't be able to interview without asking her those very important questions. Do an evening show, says the wizard's words. Oh, thank you. I did get paid by TNT. And, you know, in some respects, that's part of the problem, you know, Pink Diamond, is when you have a regular income coming in, and you're not necessarily always used to a regular income, then it's good, it's comfortable. But I've never, ever put money, right, before people. And I'm not going to start now. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining it. The Egg Woman, oh, so much more to her than the Egg Woman, LB, let me tell you. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciated it. Wake Up with Sonia Poulton is coming ASAP. Things are changing so rapidly, so quickly. I might even be able to announce it today. Who knows? I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Absolutely brilliant live stream with all of you out there. Have a fantastic, terrific, and amazing day. No idea how to end this live stream, by the way, but I'll give it my best shot. And so I just, again, thank you for joining me. It says I can edit videos here. People, this is like literally my first one, so do bear with me, right? I don't claim to know what I'm doing here. But it has been an experience. I've loved it. I'm very grateful to have been here with you. And thank you for this experience today. Have a fantastic Thursday, and I will update you ASAP. Loads of love to you. Thank